There's an insane story out of Utah, and we just wanted to, and here's the deal on this story. I'm going to tell you this ahead of time. This story is not about what you think it's about. It's about activism in America, and it's about the crushing of activists in America. That's what this story is about. But it happens to be with 6 animal rights activists in Utah. And by the way, you should listen to who these animal rights activists are. These aren't just fresh-faced 17-year-olds who have a passion for an issue. The defendants include Diane Sorbi. She's 62 years old. She's a retiree, spends most of her time volunteering at animal shelters. One of the other ones is a Ph.D., a guy named Andrew Sharo. He's 24. He's a student in the biophysics program at Berkeley, and so on. Anyway, they're in Utah, and they go to a huge turkey farm, like an industrial turkey farm. Now, if you've seen a lot of the advertising about industrial agriculture, you know that these turkeys are happy turkeys, and they're just all sitting there playing ping pong until slaughter day comes, which they're excited about because they can volunteer themselves on our tables. Well, these photographs of bucolic settings and these conditions that they advertise as perfectly humane. Here it is, Norbest mountain-grown turkey. It's like no other. Oh my God, so you feel good about it, right? Oh my God. They wander the landscape until they're called in to, meet their maker ultimately, because, that's...
Well, nothing bad happens, Mark. Magically, they go from that beautiful green bucolic setting to that delicious turkey on the table, and nothing really happens in between.
Thank you, Steve, because I was a little worried there for a second. Apparently, when these activists showed up, kind of a different scene than that. In fact, they found something radically different, tens of thousands of turkeys crammed inside filthy industrial barns, I should say, virtually on top of one another. The activists say the animals were suffering from diseases, infections, open wounds, injuries, and they get these injuries by pecking and trampling on each other. They're all crammed in, Countless chicks and adult turkeys were barely able to stand or were lying in their own waste close to death. Well, to be fair, it's hard to find a picture that would quite depict all of that, right?
Mark, to be fair, all this was happening in the mountains.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Yes. They also say that as a result of the filth in these barns, hepatitis and other viral diseases were rampant, and they spread throughout the flock. And what does that mean? Well, it means that they have to treat those diseases, right? Otherwise, you lose the whole flock, so you treat them with antibiotics, including penicillin. And they put that in the water supply to try to reduce this issue with infectious diseases. And where does that go? It goes into these creatures, and then we eat that. And so you see how the antibiotics, the general filth, the general conditions, they become important to you if you just care about the health effects. But if you have a humanitarian bone in your body, you also care about these animals that are suffering under unspeakably grotesque conditions. So here's what happened. These activists go in there and they take pictures. Do we have pictures of the, and here's a little bit of one.
This is a modern turkey farm, folks. She's been pecked clean of feathers. She's rotting to death.
Oh my God, this is horrible.
This is an infected tumor on the side of his face.
Oh my God.
The worst sign would be that she has some sort of severe infection that maybe has gotten to her brain. So we can no longer tell where her head is.
Well, it's horrifying, of course, and Direct Action Everywhere, DXE they're called, they shot that, and their activists were actually arrested as a result of this. Now, they did take, did they take 3 birds? I think they took 3 birds from these three birds that were on death's door. They took them out and actually rehabilitated them. But it's what it's called an open air rescue. They kind of just do it as symbolically. Well, they've been arrested, and now these activists, not the birds are fine, but the activists have been arrested, and they are being charged with serious criminal time. They could do 5 years each. There are 2 felony theft charges, and there are laws here on this kind of thing that are being applied elsewhere that we'll get to in a second that could end up prosecuting activists like these for terrorism-type crimes. That's hard time they could end up doing.
And these guys, the activists, they could have been prosecuted under the ag-gag laws, where you're not allowed by law to take pictures of these conditions at these industrial animal farms. But those laws have been struck down on the grounds that they are unconstitutional, that they violate the First Amendment, because why can't they speak about factory farming? That's the one thing you can't speak about. It's weird, right? So now that they don't have the ag-gag laws to protect them, the industry, basically they push the politicians into hammering these activists with other laws. In this instance, just general theft laws. So usually when in Utah, if you steal something to be charged with felony theft, the item has to be worth more than $1,500. However, Utah provides an exception for stolen stallion, mare, colt, gelding, whatever that is, cow, heifer, steer, ox, bull, calf, sheep, goat, mule, jack, jenny, swine, poultry, or a fur-bearing animal raised for commercial purposes. So if you steal any one of those things, that could also be a felony theft charge. So here, each of these activists are facing 2 such charges that can be served consecutively. So they're looking at up to 10 years in prison for rescuing these animals that are gonna die anyway and rehabilitating them. So this is incredible. Putting aside the weird favoritism for factory farming that the law provides here, it is also incredibly draconian. You're gonna take a 62-year-old woman who volunteers at an animal shelter who took a dying turkey and rehabilitated it to 10 years in prison. Is that the best use of our tax dollars?
Are you sick and tired of corporate Democrats as much as we are? Do you think we can have what the rest of the world has? Then come watch the Aggressive Progressives with us on the Young Turks Network.